Today's episode, although we're going to talk about AI, is not how to use AI, but what is AI doing to us as human beings? How is AI affecting us? And what do we need to be concerned about in the school space when it comes to using AI from a cybersecurity perspective as well as a cyber psychology perspective? And with this in mind, I'm really excited to have two colleagues of mine from Work It Daily, which is a career learning platform, talking about AI and how to use AI with our students and our teachers. I'll give more information about that at the end of the video, but really exciting to be collaborating with my two colleagues. And my two colleagues are Robin Carolissen. Robin is a cybersecurity expert as well as a cyber psychology expert. She hails from South Africa, and it's truly a global episode today. We'll also be joined by Kaylene Jones. Kaylene is an AI specialist out of Sydney, Australia. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, John.
So let's get right into it. Let's talk about, and we'll start with Robin, and then we'll go to Kaylene. Let's talk about this. How is the rise of AI changing the way our young people are thinking and behaving?
With the rise of AI, you are looking at the fact that, yes, on the one hand, you've got kids that are becoming more proficient in using it, but in the same time, you have that aspect of that over-reliance on it and grabbing whatever the AI said and not questioning whether or not this is actually accurate. You've got that aspect of it, and then you also have the security aspect of how much are we actually putting into these models, how much are these kids sharing, and how are we monitoring that sort of thing.
Kaylene, would you like to follow up with that?
Sure. Too much reliance of AI, it might affect their confidence because AI is perfect. The grammar's perfect, everything's perfect, it looks great, no spelling mistakes. So they might default to that instead of actually giving it a go on their own. So there's a concern about that. Or they might not even try in the first place because AI can do it for them. And I just also have a concern around whether they're going to use AI as their study buddy as opposed to actually working with their peers in class or for homework.
What do you recommend in terms of how to mitigate this? So you both mentioned that it really it has the potential of taking over the learning rather than helping the students learn. Now, again, I've done episodes on how students and teachers can be using AI so that it does extend thinking, not replace it. But given that it has changed the way students think, and I believe it was Kaylene who was just mentioning using it more as a buddy rather than necessarily or collaborating with actual humans. So how do we mitigate that? So in your experience with cyber psychology, we'll start with Robin. How do you mitigate this over-reliance on AI as opposed to collaborating with other people?
I actually want to take a segue off of what Kaylene said, that working within a team point of view. I mean, I remember growing up where you needed to work and collaborate with other people, help prepare me for working environments and getting myself out there. And that is at risk here. That ability to actually engage and understand that not everybody thinks and feels the way that you do, whilst the AI has a tendency to say, yes, I agree with you. We're going to have to regulate this properly. So we're going to have to put the right controls into place, the right governance into place, and it's going to be a combination of getting teachers involved to understand what exactly the curriculum is going to be about, what exactly the goals for the education system is, and then security people, legal, to make sure that what we're putting in, what those policies are, and aligns with what we actually want our kids to have access to. There are policies globally that protect what are we going to put in there to teach them? And, because AI is going to have to learn from something. So what are we going to actually put in there for it to learn from in order to communicate with our kids? Those are things that we're going to have to look at. So there is going to have to be oversight, and we need to teach children baby steps of this is a tool that's going to help you, but it doesn't mean that you leave everything the end all and be all of what it says. You need to go back and verify. And that is going to be a skill that's going to have to be taught in school. So you need to look at teaching our kids to actually validate what they're reading and seeing it as a tool to help them, but not make them lazy, as in, I just typed this thing in, so here's my answer.
You brought up a lot of good points there, Robin. You brought up, given how AI is changing student behavior, reminding them that it is a tool, it's not the be all end all. So you mentioned the tool aspect, reminding students it's a tool like other tools. You also mentioned schools putting in security protocols. We're going to talk about that a little bit later from your experience, what schools need to be concerned about in that regard. But before we go there, Kaylene, did you want to add on anything about how to mitigate this change in student behavior given the rise of AI?
Sure. Instead of focusing on the outcome, which is easy to get, you just type it into AI and AI gives you an outcome. The focus is more on the process. How did you get to that outcome? And also rewarding making mistakes, because that's how you learn, from making mistakes, and also challenging the tool. So what questions did you ask to challenge that assumption? And I know it depends on the age group, but it's about building critical thinking and the process of how to get from one point to the other. That's more the focus rather than the outcome of being, yes, that's correct, or no, that's not. Rewarding the effort and the process and the exploration rather than the outcome itself.
I love that. And in fact, that does correlate, Kaylene, with some of the other guests that we've had on the show. We had several people coming on the show in terms of talking about how to use AI ethically. Because what you're really talking about is using it ethically, both of you. Whether it's Robin talking about reminding students it's a tool, whether, again, it's you, Kaylene, talking about helping teachers understand that we should have students be thinking about their thinking using AI. That is a really good ethical use of AI. So I'm glad that both of you mentioned that. Now, moving on from that, my next question is, what is the biggest emotional shift you think teachers and students need to make or are experiencing? We'll start with Robin and then we'll go to Kaylene.
I think there's quite a few, and I think there's a lot of anxiety that's being built up. And you need to look at its positive aspects because it can increase engagement if used properly. It can increase children's engagement and their motivation, but we need to find that balance between that over-reliance, like Kaylene was talking about earlier. It can speed up from a research point of view, but again, like Kaylene mentioned, that social isolation aspect of it. So there's a lot of shift and there's a lot of pros and cons to it, but I think we need to, like we mentioned earlier, make sure that structures are in place in order to mitigate both sides of it. And then there's something that Kaylene and I know Kaylene feels really strongly about this, those deep fakes, because now you're giving kids access to an extremely powerful tool. And what do kids do? They pick on each other. That causes a lot of stress for parents and teachers because now teachers are saying, you kids have been entrusted to us, we've given them this tool, and now we run this risk. Now it's another thing that we need to police. So those are things that can stress people out a lot or can have a huge impact on your emotional well-being as parents, teachers, and kids in school.
You mentioned a key phrase there, that emotional or mental well-being. So hold that thought. We're definitely going to go back to that. Kaylene, how about you? What do you think are the bigger emotional shifts that are occurring as we integrate AI more in teaching and learning?
I think it's quite a mix of worry, anxiety, and excitement. So, and rightly so. We should be worried. We should be worried. It's way ahead of us and we're playing catch-ups. At the same time, it's given us the power to do so many things that we weren't able to do prior. But at the same time, I can imagine from an educator's point of view, they've already got so much to worry about, and now this is just one more thing. You know, another change that I have to incorporate, another thing that I have to worry about, and so overwhelm. It's probably impacting a lot of teachers as well as the children themselves. What I can see happening that might actually work in schools is teachers and their students going on the journey together and learning from each other and acknowledging their fears and their anxieties and why am I feeling this way? Well, there's actually good cause to feel that way. Deep fakes, such and such. There's misinformation out there. We should be very careful about what we read. It's not always correct. Those sort of things and those conversations I can see could be helpful in the classroom moving forward.
I love that. And you're both really bringing up this concept of well-being and ensuring well-being given the deep fakes, given the misinformation that's out there. So how do we protect student well-being? I mean, no, this tool isn't going anywhere. We are going to, the two of you wouldn't know this, but I'm starting to see school districts creating a position, a director of AI position. So clearly it's not going anywhere. In fact, it's only going to be integrated even more so in teaching and learning. Given that, what are some of the ways you would recommend preserving or protecting student emotional well-being while they use these tools? And we'll start with Kaylene and then we'll go to Robin.
I think Robin brought this up as having guidelines, guardrails, something that's being decided upon the policies of use with these tools right from the get-go, from the top down, so that everyone's understanding what these are for specifically, what can go wrong, put it out in the open, what the school promotes as good use versus not good use, and why, the why behind it.
So
Robin, so from your experience working with organizations across industries, well, if I'm a superintendent of a school system, what are those cybersecurity risks that I face? And then what are these policies that should be in place?
if you want to start putting these things in place, you need to start at the bottom. You're going to have to lay the ground. So you need to bring a team together that is going to see things from a different point of view. This is why we have teams, right? Not everybody's going to see things from the same point of view. So you're going to get your teachers, you're going to get your security people, you're going to get governance. There are policies in place already, like FERPA, and those are things that can guide where you're going to go. These policies, these frameworks, they're guidelines to help you formulate ones that better suit you. Then you have to understand prioritizing security from a risk management point of view. The point is to see these risks beforehand, to identify what is out there, so that you can put the right mitigation in place. For instance, your deepfakes. We need to start looking at how many times are kids actually sharing their pictures. I mean, you need one picture of somebody's face and you can go crazy, right? And understand the amount of tech that people are bringing to schools. We need to look at whether or not there's going to be times and places that kids are going to have access to it within a controlled environment. I think schools need to be strict on the rules. I know that parents come in and say, yes, but my child needs a phone. I hear you. But when they're in the school, surely if you need to get a hold of them, you can call the school. You know, you don't need to contact them directly type of situation. So I would say lay the groundwork, prioritize your security, and build that trust and transparency. Everybody needs to be on the same page before you can start building this whole thing out. The goals need to be clear. What is the outcomes that we are hoping to achieve? I mean, maybe when we start introducing AI models to our schools, teach how to use it properly before, you go out into the big world out there. Controlled environment in which we can do training.
Yes, I do hear what you're saying about leveling it or gradually increasing responsibility of students when using AI. Also, what resonated with me, Robin, was when you were talking about deep fakes and really being careful about the information you're sharing about students on AI, not just photos. Even if you as a teacher are using AI to grade papers, making sure you're not putting in student names and privacy information.
That's why I was saying earlier about what are we feeding into these models to train them. So a lot of times people copy and paste. The data that goes into it needs to be sanitized, especially when it comes to children. Because if that thing gets hacked, can you imagine the kind of information that someone with dark intentions will have access to? I want us to be aware of the risks involved. It's not so bad, but remember, any tool, depending on someone's intentions, can go either way. So we need to be aware of it. Because like you said, grades, if people put grades in there, if people put ages in there, school districts in there, that'll give so much information about what kid is where at what time. Of predators online for me is something very important to me, being conscious of it. People need to understand if they get access to this sort of stuff, what do they know about our kids? Everybody likes to post highlight reels. It's everywhere. Let's try to be a little more aware.
Right.
So these models are important. I do think, especially with younger children, it should be monitored, but not to the point where you're not creating paranoia. Right?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I do work in schools, I will often recommend, even if school systems have bans, particularly for younger students, how could the teacher still be using it to, say, plan a lesson? So I think those are good cybersecurity measures. Now, moving over to Kaylene, what do you think are some of the bigger cybersecurity threats out there facing our young people? And what guardrails would you put up to deal with those needs?
First of all, we need to support our educators in being able to spot AI-related safety risks, and then they can model that in the classroom or model that in the fair use and the ethical or the governance policies that are being put in place by the schools. And also, if they are aware of what data they're putting in, where that data potentially is going, then they can share that information as part of their lessons or role plays within the classroom. So I'd say start, first of all, supporting educators in basic AI safety. There are privacy settings in ChatGPTs and similar tools. There are companies very transparent about where your data goes. So it's a matter of the school purchasing through companies that are ethical and transparent. So it starts from there and works its way down through to the students.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Kaylene, because in the trainings that I have done using AI in schools, has been helping educators to actually use AI for instructional purposes. But you're bringing in a really good point, and that is using some bad case scenarios to educate folks on the importance at the same time
Yes.
of being secure. I think that is a really a great golden nugget that hopefully people will take from this conversation we're having, teaching not only the how to use AI, but making people aware when it's not used in the most efficacious way, what could happen. Not to stoke the fear that's already out there, but to mitigate that fear. If you know the risks and you know how to navigate those risks, then I think it frees you up to be a little bit more creative in using the tool, just knowing where you need to stay within those guide rails, if that makes any sense, Kaylene.
Yes, that's right. It gives you confidence as a user to be able to do what you need to do for work purposes, but also safely within those policies.
And
So,
just
Robin,
want to jump on that. I think that is such an important thing that you guys are highlighting there. If you are not aware of the risks, you can't mitigate it. And going through life with blinders on is not the way to do it. It's not a case of soaking fear, but actually making sure that everybody is aware of it. So if you don't know that the door is closed while you're walking straight at it, you're going to walk into it, right? So it is about knowing. The other thing is that, which is so important, what Katie mentioned, making sure that you and we get the right tool that is legitimate, that has started to put in those guardrails, those safety measures, because you get tools out there that is designed to groom children. You have social engineering there, and those are things that people need to be aware of. So it is so important that once you've established what exactly your goal or your outcome is here, that you get the right tool and that you are aware of the ones that are bad. So that's just my extra 2 cents.
And we're definitely going to loop back to you, Robin, very soon to talk about some psychological issues related to using AI. But I'll start with Kaylene on this question. And, there's this concept in psychology called urgency and social proof. So, how do psychological tactics like urgency and social proof make students more vulnerable to AI scams? And what other psychological tactics do dark people use to dupe our students, to entrap our students?
Sure. A lot of the times with a lot of scams, not just AI scams, but scams in general, part of the information is correct. And that's what gets you, because some of it's correct, but then the rest of it is not. And that's where they get sucked in. So where I'm coming from this is just a wider way of approaching it culturally. And this is for everybody, it doesn't matter whether you're an educator or whether you're a parent or whether you're a student. We need to learn to question what we hear and what we see. So it's about questioning. But why though? But why is that email suspicious, or why is the domain not right, or why? It's about encouraging the questioning rather than just jumping to conclusions and acting from fear.
And in fact, that loops right back, Kaylene, to what you were talking about before about getting students critically thinking about their thinking when they're using the AI tool. And we've definitely done shows on that on the podcast. I've talked about that in webinars. So I'm glad you're looping back to that, getting us questioning. It also loops back to what you were saying, Kaylene, about ensuring in any AI professional training that we are using some dark fakes and scams to train our folks, whether they're teachers or students, what to look out for and just exactly how those scams are manipulating us psychologically.
So I don't know who said this. Basically, don't believe anything you hear and half of what you see.
I love that. That might be a quote that I use to highlight this episode. I think that's key. How about you, Robin? What psychological tactics do scammers use to manipulate people, particularly young people?
Like you mentioned earlier, you have that urgency where it might be if you click here, you get unlimited credits for this one game that you're playing or something like that. And if you don't do it now, you're going to miss out. So everybody has FOMO, right? So the fear of missing out is a big thing. And this happens quite often. You see it a lot in phishing campaigns where they use not just the urgency, but a sense of authority. So they'll come in and go, okay, so this is either a teacher or a CEO that's requesting information from you. And that's another way that they can get at our kids. Something that I do want to mention is that with all of these things, it can create a sense of isolation. We're already seeing a decrease in children actually interacting with each other. So they're sitting there with their phones, but that loneliness is a way where predators online, they will exploit that loneliness. So that social engineering is something that they will exploit. Again, educating our parents and our teachers into understanding that these are the different tactics. And I love the role play idea. It's one of the best ways to teach people is doing that role play. If you look at corporations where you do, for instance, anti-phishing campaign or anti-phishing training, just the normal, oh, you should not do this, having people run through simulations, it sticks with you. So making sure that you have a clear understanding there, that distress, that isolation, that sense of powerlessness. And we see where victims are then less inclined to say anything because they weren't told, they weren't educated in order to highlight these things.
I love what you're saying, Robin, about creating a phishing campaign with, say, maybe older students, high school students, to get them to understand how they themselves might be being manipulated by phishing campaigns. And even though we started and we're really talking about I think the key to remember here is AI makes the creation of these phishing campaigns easier.
Yeah.
The connection or the tie into AI is that a lot of these campaigns are being created by AI.
So they're no longer having the whole thing where you used to have where the spelling was terrible or anything like that. With AI, they can actually tailor it more. And especially with what we're putting out there, again, everything that you post about your kid, before you post a thing, think about what tomorrow's you is going to feel about it, next week's you is going to think about it, or even next year. Are those versions of myself going to be happy that I posted it? And I think it's a question that every parent needs to ask themselves before I post it. Am I going to be happy with the fact that I don't know who else has access to it? So from a social engineering point of view, these people are master manipulators. They study you. They figure out who you are, where you're from, what kind of thing your kid likes, and then they slide into the DMs of the kid's game. So they're playing online games, and then they go, yay, I know that you guys just got a puppy, that sort of thing. So it creates that familiarity.
How about you, Kaylene? Do you want to add anything onto that?
I just wanted to add that I was scrolling on Instagram the other day and came across a celebrity who was not putting her kids everywhere. She was filming from behind, so no one knows what they look like. If she was taking photos or video, she'll put a cartoon face on the front. It's refreshing that someone who grew up in the public eye is modeling behavior that will keep her children safe.
As we're talking, I'm almost thinking maybe our episode should be called AI and Other Digital Use. Because again, how is the AI helping people make more sophisticated scams, number one, but two, what is safety online when we are posting? And I'm glad you mentioned the hiding the face, because in my work as a student teaching advisor at Brooklyn College, we ask our student teachers to submit videos for us to then observe. We also recommend, if it's a good lesson, teachers post it on their digital portfolio. But still, before you put that video on your portfolio, are you circling out your student faces? We'll start with Kaylene on this next question, and then we'll go to Robin. And this has been a theme throughout our episode. We've talked about all the things that can go wrong with AI and how the dark web is using it to create phishing campaigns, and how our students need to be aware of when they're being scammed, and what teachers need to do to ensure that our students are safe when they're on AI. I mean, the anxiety level, I'm sure, of my listeners is pretty high at this moment. And so I don't want people to go away saying, well, then I'm just not going to use it, because I don't think that's realistic either. Because if we're not teaching our students how to use AI, we're not teaching them for their future, because it's going to be embedded in every part of life very soon. For better or worse, the horse is out of the barn, it's happening. So just closing the door and saying, I'm not going to think about it, isn't a response either. So I say all that, Kaylene, to preface my next question, which is, we've stoked the fear out there. If the fear wasn't already there, how now would you help teachers reduce that level of anxiety and develop their agency in using AI?
I would say, first of all, it's good to be a little concerned. It is good, work with that. I would say when it comes to AI, don't love it and don't hate it. So I saw a post on LinkedIn the other day, and had a poll and said, do you wish AI never existed? Well, that's kind of silly because it's not going anywhere. And so I responded in the comments, do you wish the internet didn't exist? It's basically the same thing. Like you said, John, it's not going away. We need to learn to live with it, use it to our advantage, and embrace the anxiety, embrace the fact that you don't trust it, embrace the fact that, yes, it can do things that we're not quite across and we don't understand. But at the same time, there's a lot of things it can't do. It can't replace a lot of the human interaction, especially it can't replace educators. It can't. It can replace some administrative type of tasks, repetitive tasks. It might help with lesson planning, but it can't replace you. Knowing that and having the confidence that you've been given a tool that augments what you can already do. It augments your superpower, and it's up to you to educate yourself about how best to use it where you feel comfortable.
Love it. Robin, how about you? How do we reduce the anxiety level of our educators?
Kaylene, I have to agree with you. You should be aware of the risks. You should, questioning it and all of those things is actually going to count in your favor. You need to see it as, I am aware of the risks, and these are the ways that it's going to help me, and this is how it's going to alleviate my stress. And alleviating by knowing what the risks are, it is actually going to bring your stress down, because imagine not knowing, right? So there's that aspect. You have to see that there are tools that can help access a broader inclusion of your learners. They could be learners with different learning capabilities, that you can use these type of tools to include them and become more inclusive. And that also helps you and I'm pretty sure as a teacher, you feel good when you've included your entire class, right? So, and build that relationship. And I do think you're right, Kaylene. Having a human on the other side is so vital to a child's learning and development that a machine is just not going to do. You're teaching them, but it's that human connection. And when that emotional side of things, that where we learn from, is a child not only learns because of the data that you're giving them, they learn because of how they felt when the person was teaching them. That safety, that concern, that I'm in your corner. So I don't think teachers are going to go anywhere. I think that you have this technology that, like all things in life, it's ever evolving. But if you are aware of it and you're aware of how you can use it, I think it is going to alleviate a lot of your stress, because it is going to help you, as long as you obviously don't do what the kids are doing, which is believe everything that comes out of it. Challenge it, question it. And that's also going to help with your critical thinking, in the sense that you are questioning something. And that's something we can teach our kids. This is a puzzle. Can you spot what is wrong in the information that they gave us? The AI gave us this, so let's go do some research to see whether or not it's accurate. I don't think teachers are going to go anywhere. I think teachers are extremely important. And I might be biased here as daughter of 2 teachers, but you need to understand, as long as you're using it as a tool, it can help you. It can alleviate some of that stress. And knowing the risks that are out there makes you a better teacher.
Indeed. And I like how you were putting that, Robin, because as you were talking, and you've talked about this throughout our chat, which is, really making sure you have a plan and you know the end outcome, you know the goal, you know the destination. So I think that will help with stress. If you know why you're using the tool and you're thinking about how you're using AI, if you're engaging students on the internet, even knowing why you're doing it first and what the intended outcome is, I think can reduce stress, because you know where you're trying to go. Okay, now I know where I'm trying to go. What guardrails do I need to set so my students can get there safely? So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And I'm also glad that Kaylene mentioned to be aware of the fear, to lean into the fear, to not love it or hate digital use or AI use. But again, Acknowledge the fear, acknowledge that the fear is valid, research and train folks how to mitigate those fears, know the possible risks, and then what to do to mitigate those risks, and tying that into a strategic plan around your AI use, I think could again help tamp down that fear and that anxiety, to turn it from anxiety and fear to a productive.
But also augment your superpower, because you naturally have a superpower, or as a tool to help you make that bigger and better.
And again, thank you for mentioning this concept of superpower, because Robin was just highlighting that too. Our superpower as educators is our ability to form relationships with our students. And as of now, that's not going anywhere. As of now, when we're talking about chatbots and ChatGPT or Magic School, that doesn't replace that human connection. So I'm glad you both mentioned that, because I even say that in my coaching work. Use the AI to help you as a teacher make more efficient some of your teaching practices, so you have more time for that one-on-one connection. But before I move on, I think Robin wanted to add something.
You need to focus on actually saying, okay, yes, we are using it, but how we can actually integrate it. And this is for challenge for the teachers of using it, but still having those team projects that people actually do together, just so that you still have that human interaction and see it as a tool.
We've done episodes of project-based learning on the show,
Mm.
how students could be learning not with the project at the end of the unit, but the project is the unit. And how do students work together to learn the concepts that you're teaching through a real-world application? AI is a tool you could use. Digital is a tool you could use to build into that. And then you could, like Kaylene is saying, have kids thinking about their thinking, the metacognition. All right, how did AI help you to answer this part of the problem of our project-based learning? What was good about it? What wasn't good about it? What did you like about it? What you didn't like about it? Talk amongst yourselves and give me an evaluation, synopses on the pros and cons of your AI use. Choose one person in your group of 4 to talk about that. Choose one person to be the scribe. Choose one person to circle the key concepts or themes or trends that keep coming up. Have one person be the timekeeper for this project. I'm a big fan of group roles too. So yes, I'm loving how both of you are talking about how to integrate AI as a tool to foster not only student creativity and thinking, as Kaylene was saying before, but now what you're saying, Robin, group collaboration as well.
Mhm.
So love that, love that. Kaylene, did you want to add something?
No, I love what you're saying about being able to do that sort of project work. And what I also would like to encourage students is to find mistakes with what ChatGPT came up with, or to question it, or to what could have worked better, what should it have done, or what prompt could we have improved upon to get a better outcome. So you're looking at the process is being marked as a whole, rather than what you came up with at the end, which might have been an article or a presentation. It's more about that process and rewarding the process and rewarding mistakes in the process and rewarding asking questions at every step of the process.
Love it. Can't agree more. So, ladies, where can people find out more about you and your work? We'll start with Kaylene and then we'll go to Robin.
Just go to LinkedIn. My link is Kaylene P. Jones. So LinkedIn, type that in. All the videos are there. Reach out to me anytime.
Awesome. I hope people do. And Robin, how about you?
I'm also on LinkedIn. So it's Robin Carolissen. So I'm there. If you want to have a longer discussion, I'm also on Subs, so you can reach me there as well. Also Robin Carolissen, so sub/Robin Carolissen.
And, I'm glad that you mentioned Subs, because many of us who work with JT O'Donnell at Workaday Pro Voice are on Subs. Not all of us, but many of us. The thing that unites the 3 of us is we are all clients of Workaday. We are all pro voices. So the other thing I want to add for folks out there, if you like what Kaylene, Robin, and I are doing in terms of collaborating, and you are looking to be an influencer, a thought provoker on social media, there's probably no one better that you could connect with than JT O'Donnell with ProVoice. I will also include links on how you could access Work It Daily ProVoice. You can find it online, but I will also include links to our talent agency there if this is something you'd be interested in participating in. Now, the only thing I ask for my listeners is if you do reach out to JT O'Donnell and Work It Daily, do mention that you heard about the platform from Kaylene, Robin, and I. That would be a big help. It'll let us know that this episode on AI and digital use with students and teachers resonated with you. So, folks, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you were here. You also know how to reach out to me if you have any questions. Ladies, Kaylene and Robin, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.